no shop, like I said, and working with rural economies. Then he worked in the U.S. Senate working with a lottery scam, and then which caused him to have an interest in transnational organized crime. So he's now working within his nonprofit now with that. When he's not at the office, he enjoys moonlighting as a certified kayak guide and instructor on the Potomac River, which is great. So here you are, Luther. Everybody give an applause to Luther, please.
Thanks so much, Meredith. It's a real honor to be here. Frankly, I'm floored and quite fascinated by the fact that there's so many people in the room that are interested in hearing about the ways I fucked up and the ways other people have fucked up. I find it kind of odd and kind of awesome. So luckily for you guys, being someone naive enough to go to Afghanistan at the age of 19, which is a pretty dangerous context to start up an organization in, my list of mistakes is rather long, starting with the fact that you'll see it here in a second, that I designed a first logo using Microsoft Word, as you can see. That's a very bad idea. But I've always been a googly-eyed dreamer, ever since I was old enough to count gummy bears in kindergarten. Had all sorts of business ideas growing up, but that sort of pursuit of my dreams took a turn for the bizarre when I flew to Pakistan. I donned the local clothes, assumed a Turkish pseudonym, and then proceeded to drive into the tribal areas across the border into Afghanistan, which was extremely sketchy, not a smart thing to do. But despite that, the security risks, the government corruption, and my own naivety, I managed to form No Shock, which is named after Afghanistan's highest mountain. And I've got it fully registered despite all that. So, as some context, No Shock really never did anything the easy way. For starters, we decided to run all of our projects in the most remote and isolated corner of the country, where over half the villages lack roads, where the primary mode of transportation is by donkey. So secondly, the types of projects we chose to do were more fit for a Chuck Norris type character rather than a soft-footed doctor's kid like myself. For example, building an access road out of a steep mountainous trail, irrigating veggies on the side of the mountain, and then transporting stinging honeybees for days along dirty, bumpy roads inside vans. Ouch. Yeah, so let's talk about the road project for a second here. So 2.5 miles of road built using the manpower of 200 villagers. What could go wrong, right? Well, apparently a lot could go wrong. The first day of the project, my team and I showed up on horseback. There were over 100 villagers that had already showed up to help, divided into clusters all over the mountainside. And they started approaching us one by one, refusing to work unless we raised their rate of pay, which was not in the budget for us to be able to do so. So one by one has happened until we only had a couple dozen workers left who were still willing to pitch in. The project was, falling apart before our very eyes. Thankfully, in this case, we were able to get a local power broker named Abdul Hakim, who was able to negotiate the pay process, kind of resolve the situation, and continue the project. But I think the lesson here is delegate, delegate, delegate. I mean, I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, it's really important that we understand the right time to sort of step back and realize when our overzealous presence is getting in the way. Something might be our brainchild, but there's no need to be a hero about it. We need to surround ourselves with teams that are better than us. To be honest, No Shock was never a big success. That's probably why I'm here tonight. But we ran for 3.5 years. We only did projects for the last year and a half. The death knell, though, really came in 2012. And here's the backstory. There is a district in Afghanistan called Yamgan, and in the middle of Yamgan's main town is the shell of a school building. It was actually started by the United Nations Development Program, or the UNDP, only finished 50% of it despite 200 grand in funding. So unfortunately there was some corruption, some money swindling that went on. Meanwhile, the kids who were supposed to meet in that building had to meet on the cold hard ground around the periphery underneath tents. So when we discovered this, we're like, we're going to come in and save the day. We're going to finish that remaining 50%. You know, we got 75 grand of funding lined up, which is a lot for our organization. But the stickler was that in order to get the permissions we needed from the government to proceed, we had to obtain a series of documentation from the UNDP. So, you know, we lobbied hard. We had like a government minister set deadlines on our behalf. But it turns out that getting a large, powerful organization like the UNDP to sort of swallow its ego for the benefit of a small fry NGO is probably as likely as Ted Cruz winning the presidential primary in Massachusetts. Am I right? So, long story short, we never got the papers, and that left our organization cashless and drifting. Eventually, the board of directors made the decision to close down the organization for good. So I barked up the wrong tree. I picked the wrong battle in this case, and as a result, I jeopardized our entire operation. Our employees lost jobs. It left villagers disillusioned in its wake. And, you know, I have a lot of regrets from that, to be honest. I fucked up, right? But the truth is that the regrets that I have now, as a result of that, are less than the regrets I would have had I not followed my dream. And I learned a hell of a lot in the process as well. As you guys know, entrepreneurship is very addicting, and it's also challenging. But it turns out that one series of fuck-ups wasn't enough for me, so I'm going in for a second round with a project called Citizen Catalyst. And in a nutshell, we're developing electronic means of peacefully and safely combating organized crime. We're based here in DC. And to be honest, you know, sometimes entrepreneurship can really suck. You know, I make a living driving Uber and stacking kayaks in the Potomac. I don't know if I'm going to make next month's rent, and sometimes I do crave just being normal. But I think the truth is that I wouldn't be content with normal, and I learned the most in the School of Hard Knocks. And also, I wouldn't have met Meredith had I not worked for Uber and had not she been one of my customers. So that's why I'm here tonight. That's the backstory there. So in closing, you know, here's to fucking up. Here's to taking chances, and here's to doing things the hard way, because in the end, it's so worth it. Thanks, you guys.
So we'll do, if anyone has any questions specific, can you hear me, everyone? Okay, if anyone has any questions specific to Luther, we can take them now, or we can save them all for the end. Whatever makes you happy. Right, okay, so next we'll go ahead and have Alex to the front. So Alex will be our next presenter. This is Mr. Cox. And alright. So Alex is originally from the Montana Rockies. He did some time in China. It's good to do, you know, teach in Asia for a little bit. We all do that sometimes. And then he started a peanut butter company, which is amazing. Interests, far outreaches, grasp, and failures completely outweigh his successes. And when it comes to failures, he's a complete success. Okay, Alex lives in Silver Spring. He's an 80s baby. Likes Tina Fey. I found that out on Twitter. Okay. Avid bicyclist, a proud tourist, and combats global malnutrition daily. So, go ahead. This is all you got. Woo!
Thank you. Yes, my name's Alex. I kind of took a different route, and I just thought I would tell you a whole bunch of failures in my life, starting with junior high and moving up. I want to start here. All of us kind of fail at things like our first fall when we're trying to walk, wetting the bed. Some of us still do that. And I want to talk about the one you're all interested in, I think, is romance. Right around 7th grade, had a big crush, Melanie. Fashion was another failure, and still is. Melanie and I never really talked, but we had this connection. I think it was math class, but it might have been more. And one day after school, we're standing outside on a wintry day, and waiting for our parents to arrive. And my mom pulls up in the minivan, and I look over and I coolly say, "That's my ride." It's probably the only time I ever talked to her. I stepped off the curb, I slipped, and I actually fell on my face and I broke my glasses right at the bridge. And Melanie and my mom came rushing over to my rescue. And so that's kind of actually a success because Melanie touched my arm. So one of my biggest failures was graduating in 2010 because the economy was pretty rough at the time. There weren't a lot of prospects and I decided I wanted an adventure. So I moved to China with no plan except to teach. And if you want an adventure, don't move to China for a year or two. Go to Europe or Thailand or somewhere like that. Because China will really test you. Mainly it'll test your stomach. I've only shit my pants twice as an adult. Once was in China, and the other one is another failure story for another fucked up night. But there is a silver lining. I had a lot of students who became great friends who I still stay in touch with today. But it was an emotionally rough time. So internally it was a failure and I knew I needed to come back to the States and kind of reset. So I came back and I wanted to get involved with something, with a mission, with a purpose. And so I joined up with this nonprofit that creates a special kind of food called ready-to-use therapeutic food. It's basically peanut butter, milk, and vitamins. And UNICEF actually considers it the cure to malnutrition. So we went to this organization, a friend and I, and we said, hey, sponsor us to live in a 1971 Winnebago and drive across the country telling people about this good news, about this kind of treatment that cures malnutrition. And after convincing the board, they let us go, they let us buy a Winnebago, and we lived in it. And we went to all kinds of different events, speaking and telling people about it. It was definitely effective. I mean, there was shag carpet, there was an 8-track player. We had mustaches because it was the 70s. And for those of you who don't know, it's kind of like a toaster oven on wheels. So actually the whole thing was supposed to be like 4 months, but 2.5 months in, we're in California. We're driving down the road and we hear a loud noise and we smell smoke. And so we're like, we better check this out. We pull over, we get out and there's a huge flame right on the rear axle. And it's burning up into the floorboard. A bunch of fire trucks come and everything started getting out of hand. So I pulled out my phone and filmed it. The film is not on here, but there's a picture. It exploded like a 30-foot flame, Hollywood style, because apparently propane tanks are flammable. May she rest in peace. So her ashes were spread over the Pacific Ocean. A lot of people pay a lot of money for that. I have some of the ashes at my home in an urn. And we still had a bunch of events to do, so we decided that evening, about an hour after this, let's hitchhike the next 3,000 miles and just tell people that way. That's us hitchhiking. So hitchhiking was desperate, but it turned out to be a cool thing because we got a lot of intimate time with people in their cars. For 2 to 4 hours, we could tell them all about what we were up to, severe malnutrition, tell them about this cure, treatment, and a lot of people gave us valuable feedback that actually plays into our business today. I would say it's the most valuable feedback we've ever gotten. And we've even debated hitchhiking again, just so we could get that kind of one-on-one time with people. But anyway, I actually want to tie all this together and say, failure kind of has one of two outcomes. Either you're a whiner and you run and hide, or you try harder and you get better. That's it. Those are your two options. And in the wise words of Alfred, why do we fall down, Master Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up. That's Batman. So that kind of British wisdom is true all the time. When you're a kid, you're trying to learn how to walk, you fall down, you pick yourself back up. You're an adult, you're trying to learn the flute, you're trying to learn to be a lawyer, whatever it is. You need to embrace the failure. But we get more and more critical of ourselves. And I want to leave you with the words of my lifelong mentor, who was the first person to talk to me after China. He said, most often, success is simply dragging your broken self across an imaginary finish line. Today you can buy good spread at Harris Teeter, at Whole Foods, at various local places on Amazon. It's just peanut butter. When you buy our peanut butter, we give the therapeutic food on the back end. And that feedback came from the people we met while hitchhiking. So I encourage you all, embrace failure, try harder, get better. Thank you.
Do we have any questions directly for Alex at this time, perchance? We will mingle after. You can ask him all that you wish. Okay, next we'll have Keith. Mr. Mao. Mr. Mao. So Keith is the team lead of Casavva, and is a team that outfits the 21st century gentleman. And he started businesses ever since he was 15, which is amazing. Oh, okay. Oh, it's a group presentation. Perfect. Yeah. Great. Okay, perfect. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and Keith, I'm going to let you hop to it, okay? Very well.
Thanks, Meredith. So I'm Keith with Casavva. We're a little homegrown operation in Brooklyn, making casual menswear. And hear me all right? Better? Okay. And when it comes to fuck-ups, I don't want to talk about our current product because it's live on Kickstarter, and I don't want everyone to pull their pledges all of a sudden because we're at 99% and it could still go sour from now. But I do want to talk about, when it comes to fuck-ups, some of our earlier products. And I think they'll really do justice to the theme of the night. And I did bring something that we worked on a couple years ago, 2 years ago, one of the Casavva's first products. I have friends Carl, and this is Carl and Jojo, by the way. Let's hold it up for now. And as you can see in the pictures in the background, in the really early days, this was like 2-3 years ago, how we actually tested fabrics was by literally boiling them in my kitchen. This was before we had any sophisticated things like dryers, which we now have access to. But yeah, and here is something else that actually got turned into a garment you'll see in the next picture. But I want to talk about this product for now. This is one of our early ones. And it's, Carl can probably attest that it weighs as much as a small dog, I'd say, a Pomeranian maybe. And as you can see, it took up just about half my backpack, 20-liter backpack, so about 10 liters of volume there. And it also sheds roughly as much as a small dog, so you pretty much... Yeah, well, you know, I prefer the small dog in some sense, but yeah, so it leaves its DNA everywhere it goes, and it seems to always self-replenish as well, so that, you know, you will never sort of run out of shedding as you continue wearing the garment. And it's also perfectly, the contour of the shirt, it doesn't actually sort of drape over you, it maintains its structure, so that when you put it on, whatever you see, the shape here is the shape that you're gonna look, not the other way around. It's extremely thick, it's boiled wool. Yeah, that's actually an earlier version of it, which is even more of a fuck-up that I don't even want to show it in public anymore. You can see only the first, sort of, the top little bit of it, which looks kind of presentable, but yeah, it kind of goes sour from there. But what we did here is we also lined it with material on the inside so that, you know, and we thought this would be such a good idea because it's kind of like you're wearing a nylon Under Armour, but with a really thick sweater attached to it. And you can't really separate the two. And the effect that it creates is that it's extremely warm, and it's meant to be worn directly against your skin, and it builds this layer of perspiration after about 10 minutes of wearing it. and it's this kind of perpetual layer that sticks with you throughout the day, unless you want to take the garment off. And speaking of taking the garment off, it's going to be, I don't know if anyone of you want to try putting it on in the first place, but there's absolutely no elasticity in the garment. There's perfectly no stretch. The inner lining stretches, but the exterior, which is this thick boiled wool, does not stretch one bit. There's no ribbing like on the collar and the cuffs. Yeah, good too. It takes 4 people to get it on. Yeah, I used to for a very long time. I used to just wear this around, on the weekends, trying to convince myself that this is a really awesome garment, and like sweating bullets the whole time doing chores. But I used to really try to convince myself of this.
I'm fainting.
Yeah.
Hold me up.
Now try taking it off, because I think you might be stuck with it for a little while longer. Yeah. But so that's yeah. And by the way, just after saying all that, if you do still want to purchase one of those products, we actually happened to think it was such a good product that we bought an entire roll of that fabric with the intention to make it into a line. And right now it's sitting at my partner's place in New York, and every time I go there, it has moved from the interior closet to the living room to like the staircase, and now it's sitting there's like 2 staircases and a little part in the middle, so it's migrated to that area. And I'm pretty sure the next time I go, it'll migrate closer and closer to the door until probably we won't ever see it again. So if you do actually think you want one of those products, we have a shitload of that fabric sitting around, which we spent a lot of money getting. And by the way, it costed us like $180 to make that. So let's that could also be part of the fuck up. It cost $180 to make that, so we yeah. That's pretty much where we started. Making these kind of sweaters and things, really trying to get our feet wet in the manufacturing industry. We went in there just thinking, hey, how hard can it be to make a shirt or a sweater? How hard can it be, right? We're all wearing clothes right now, It seems like, an assembly line runs in 2 minutes, it's done. So, but when we got there and we started working on, we realized, there are a lot of moving parts, and we just didn't know shit. For instance, just to give you an example, the shirt that I'm wearing right now, which is something that we're running on Kickstarter, it's made out of 21 pieces plus 2 pieces, so 22 pieces of special material, so that's 23 pieces. 14 pieces of fusible interfacing, which is like this transparent material that goes into your collar and your cuffs. 13 buttons. All of these things are sourced from different places. They arrive at different times in the factory. Some things don't arrive at all in the factory. Actually, a lot of times, things just don't arrive. And we've gone through a couple rounds of fuck-ups. This is our current company headquarters over in Astoria, New York. We only have 1 chair, and I hog it most of the time, so I'm sitting on the chair right now. And to wrap it up, we like to have a little bit of fun during our fuck-ups, and this is one of our models for the shirts. Happened to also find 6 Senator John McCain's hanging out, each by coincidence wearing a Casavva shirt. So thanks, and I don't think I I have any particularly wise words. Luther and Alex put it much better than myself. But you know, if you're willing to just bootstrap it, try things, iterate over and over again, you might end up somewhere all right. Thanks.
All right, so those are our 3 presenters for the evening. I do suggest, so we'll take questions if you have any for any of the 3. You'll also be hanging out for a bit, so you'll be here. So if you wish to approach them, sorry, here I'm louder. If you wish to approach them directly, please feel free to do so. We are also present, like I said, on social media. So we have an email address. It's fun@washingtondc@gmail.com. The international website is FuckUpNights.com. We're on Facebook and Twitter, so if you wish to tweet to those accounts, friend them, follow them, any photos that you get from the event. And we're mostly going to spread organically, so via social media. So reach out if you want us to have your information, if you have ideas for presenters, etc. Okay, well thank you so much for coming, I appreciate it. All right, thank you for joining. See you later.